Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our business meeting this evening. We're going to go ahead and start off an open session with 3.01 with Pledge of Allegiance. So those of our students that are here visiting with us this evening, if you would still come on up and let's all join together and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
You guys move forward. We know you're taller than me, but you still move forward.
So, Bai and Cheek, if you want to come up as well. Okay, so if you want to lead us in the pledge, we'll take your lead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Moving to 3.02 School of the Month. This evening, let's start with the International Welcome Center.
Mr. Smith,
yes.
I believe Ritenour Middle is going to go first.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's have RMS come on up.
Yeah, we're thrilled to be here.
Brian, the clicker's right there.
Okay.
You just need to turn it on the side.
I want to set the tone with our School of the Month slideshow, make sure that we recognize.
There's a button on the side.
Button on the side. There it is, and it is now on.
Perfect.
All right, School of the Month, take 2. Here we go. We are here. We are thrilled. Our vision here is in line with Ritenour School District's vision, a partnership with parents and community, developing leaders recognized for academic excellence, and producing graduates who will become productive citizens and leading lives of personal integrity and fulfillment. Of course, the mission of our district is to ensure learning occurs in a supportive environment that enables every student to think critically, solve problems, and develop the knowledge and skills necessary for success in our global and diverse society. Several bullets from the equity statement. I hope that you'll find tonight that we are invested in engaging our students in their learning and supporting student and teacher efficacy through the presentation that I'm thrilled that everybody gets a chance to experience here. But do something that I usually don't do here in front of the board. I'm going to keep this very short on my end. Rare is it that I have guest speakers of the caliber of these two 8th graders, Gianna Fouché and Grace Key, are very, very impressive students that have come here tonight to present with myself and my colleague Kim Sagahana, who is here to represent the RMS counseling team. These are 2 of our very best student leaders. And so without further ado, Mr. Smith, if there's a way to click on the presentation within the presentation, we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, look, but looks like it's actually just the next slide. Sorry. Looks like we're in business. Bingo. All right. You want me to click for you guys? You got it? You got it, of course.
So this is our School of the Month presentation by me and Gian.
So our goal as Ritenour leadership is to lead by example. And ways we do that are building school spirit, creating a supportive environment, and forming a community partnership.
So our first topic we're going to talk about is building school spirit.
During homecoming week, using the theme "Let the Games Begin," we created different activities for each day of the week to get into the Ritenour spirit. For example, we had Battleship Day when we wore the Ritenour colors. Another one of our days was the Game of Life when we dress up as our future selves. We also had a door decorating contest where each Husky pack displayed their Ritenour pride.
For Red Ribbon Week in October, we put together activities to spread awareness about drug prevention. We wore red on one day for drug prevention. On another day, we did Style Swap to encourage our peers to change the bad habits. Each Husky Pack participated in a pumpkin decorating contest to spread drug-free messages to display outside their classrooms. Some students chose to compete in a drawing contest. They created a picture with a drug-free message.
8 days before winter break, we had a Winter Spirit Week to help staff and students get into the holiday spirit. For one of the days, we were mad about plaid, so our mess wore plaid clothing. We also wore our ugly sweaters, white for Winter Wonderland, and soccer gear to celebrate the World Cup. Each Husky Pack decorated wreaths. We sold hot chocolate and candy cane grams. All the money we made went to Ritenour Co-Care.
So during our Spirit Weeks, each Husky Pack competed against grade level packs and competitions. The pack with the highest participation during the dress-up days won a prize. The winner of the door decorating contest of the homecoming week played in board games with members from the admin and counseling team. The pumpkin decorating contest winners played in a dodgeball tournament, and our wreath decorating contest winners played in a soccer game.
Our next topic is creating a supportive environment.
So for Children's Abuse Awareness Day, we designed it to help us become more aware of the needs of grieving children. We provided activities to help develop more awareness in RMS. RMS students participated in a Holding On to Hope activity where they wrote on how they hold on to hope after a loss of loved one. Students were also encouraged to write down the name of someone they're holding on to hope to on a banner outside the cafeteria. This leadership team sold butterfly tattoos as a symbol of children's abuse awareness to raise money for Annie's Hope, which is a center of kids of grieving children in the St. Louis area.
A select group of leadership students were chosen to become peer mediators. They completed a 6-hour-long training session through Prevent Ed to learn how to guide their peers through a problem-solving process during a conflict. We've actually had several peer mediations with 6th graders, and most of them have been successful.
Can you talk just a little bit about, so I assume both of you are peer mediators also?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience and why you think they've been successful?
Well, it's like we went through that training and we got to experience more and learn how to like go on conflicts and not pick sides, so like they don't get frustrated and we understand. And it just helps because sometimes kids like to listen to more people their age mix so we can understand more.
Do you feel that you have the language to mediate, to navigate conflict?
Yes.
What's an example of some of the language that you might use in a peer mediation?
So during the peer mediation, since our job is to not pick sides and to help understand how each person is feeling, we have to make sure that we don't put any blame on anyone. So we'll use words like what I'm hearing is, and recite the situation rather than like putting the blame on the other person and saying, oh, so this person did that. Yeah. And we try to get their account of the events and how they feel so both parties can understand and cooperate and get to know how to solve this conflict.
Thank you.
And they're a little underselling because they're fantastic. They do better than I do with these kids. And before Christmas, Gianna and another student spent like half of the day in my office pulling all these 6th graders in that are having conflict. And the 6th graders now continue to say, can we meet with those girls again? They said that it would check up on us. So that's part of it too, is like to check in on the students that they've mediated to make sure their conflict is still.
That's good. That's good. Thank you.
So buddy rooms, so we did this and we're going to be doing it now. So leadership students visit the self-contained classes during Husky time. We enjoy pairing up with students and do team building activities and play board games, and like we do their activities that they do during daily class during Husky time.
Our next topic is forming a community partnership.
For a Ritenour food drive, East Husky Pack brought cans for the Ritenour food pantry and those in our community. Leadership students went around the school to pick up cans from each class and help them load into the truck. The class from each grade level that brought in the most cans won a prize.
Before Thanksgiving and Christmas, leadership students visited the Overland Community Center to serve the senior citizens lunch before the holidays.
Our goal as leadership students is to lead by example. Building school spirit and creating a safe environment for everybody in the community is our year-long goal.
So, Gianna and Grace are two of our 8th grade leaderships. We have probably about 6 to 8 more 8th graders that have been with us through the duration of middle school. And this is a snapshot of them, but I can't tell you what wonderful children they are, students. They're devoted, they're dedicated, they're hardworking, they're motivated. We kind of tease as the counseling department, what are we going to do without them next year? Because they do part of our job for us. And they're kind of unique in a way that we started with them in 6th grade when we were in virtual. And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to start my leadership team? We're virtual, I don't know these kids. So I reached out to the 5th grade teachers and counselors and I'm like, I need a list of kids that you can recommend. We started probably in September and I gathered them together. I said, hey, I think you're going to be our 6th grade RMS leaders. Are you up for the challenge? And they're like, yes. We met virtually every Wednesday, I think at 7:30 in the morning, sometimes in our pajamas, but they were there every single Wednesday and we went through 8 leadership lessons. And when they came back in January, they hit the ground running. I mean, they were so good and they have just been true examples of what leaders are. How do you guys feel like it has helped you and how will you carry it over into the high school?
I've learned a lot being a part of RMS leadership. I feel like I was able to learn and advance my leadership skills, and I'm hoping that I can bring that into high school and be a good example for people in my grade, and also eventually trying to be a part of the high school's leadership program. So.
Leadership, because it's been so different from what I expected starting out virtually, I've been open to a lot of new opportunities I never thought I'd be open to, and it's just been really fun to get to know more people and get to do other things to help lead an RMS.
Great kids come from great families. I want to thank both their families for being here with us this evening. We're blessed to have other older Fouchés, and I can't wait to have Grace's little brother who's here with us in the crowd. I want to thank everybody for giving us the time to brag about our kids. It's a highlight of what we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so
all.
much.
Great job.
Thank you so much.
Going into high school.
Absolutely wonderful. Now we look forward to meeting with our International Welcome Center. Come on up.
You've introduced.
Okay. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak to you about the International Welcome School and introduce some students that have been in the program and transitioned already to the high school, and another student who has been here for about a semester, and will transition to the high school on Tuesday. Jennifer Wallace, my colleague, will present some foundational information about the IWC, and then we'll have Bayek and Schick tell you a little bit about their experience arriving recently to the United States, and have Schick having transitioned from the IWC program to the high school. So I'll allow Jennifer Wallace to take over.
Yeah, I got the clicker. Thank you so much for inviting us here and letting us brag about our program and our students. So the vision statement, obviously In partnership with parents and community, we'll develop leaders recognized for academic excellence and produce graduates who will become productive citizens and lead lives of personal integrity and fulfillment. And then the mission and statement is to ensure learning occurs in a supportive environment that enables every student to think critically, solve problems, and develop the knowledge and skills necessary for success in our diverse global society. And then the parts of the equity statement that we're focused on in our presentation are that diversity is valued, sought, and embraced, and that resources are allocated so that every student gets what they need. And we really try to meet the students where they are, and we are actually quite diverse at the International Welcome Student. We do have 7 languages represented. Over 90% speak Spanish, of course, but we also have Farsi, French, Hmong, Kekchi, Ukrainian, and Vietnamese. So we're getting more and more diverse every day as we get more and more students. And 11 countries are also represented at the IWC. And that includes a lot of Latin America, but also Afghanistan, Ukraine, and Vietnam. So, just a little breakdown of the grade levels and the number of students. Right now we have about 96 students. And also there's diversity in their skills. So when they come to us, they don't always have absolutely nothing, no English. Sometimes they have some English, sometimes they have very little, but we want to meet them where they are. And most of them start at where the dark blue is, the tall parts. And so we're moving them towards the other side, towards the 4s or 5s. And this is just the most recent data we have from the WIDA model, which we took in November. It was very helpful to see where they are and how they're progressing. So we focus on their growth, meeting them where they are, as I've said, and then taking them to the next step. So we are lucky that we get to see amazing growth while they're with us. I mean, they come here sometimes with no English, and within weeks they're saying, hello, how are you, you know, conversational. It's pretty incredible. We measure growth in many ways with Ms. Thompson, FastBridge, the checklist assessment, WIDA model, and WIDA access testing. And because of this insane growth, we have to be pretty agile and react quickly to be able to make sure that we're meeting them where they are and meeting their needs, and that they are appropriately challenged. And I apologize for that being there, but so we are small, which allows us to be agile with our grouping. We have Ms. Thompson, of course, who is in the back there, who provides reading intervention. We have Ms. Pinones and Ms. Tovar Chavez providing support for their personal growth. So it's not just language, but it's academic, it's their personal growth, social, emotional. And then we also have our teaching assistants and Ms. Logue, who's a teacher, you know, helping meet them where they are and taking them to that next level in their language. So this would be an example of when they first arrived. So the most recent students in this class had arrived 2 days before I made this presentation. Well, not when I made it, but when I finished it. And so they're just making lists of words, vocabulary words that they've learned, any words that they know on different topics. So these are some of the topics that we focus on at the beginning, you know, just survival, English, you know, things that they need to know based on our checklist. This would be someone who is one of our students who is almost ready to transition out. And they arrived just this past August. So they go from making lists, you know, word level, and to full paragraphs, Venn diagrams. I'm not going to read all of it, but you can see that they gain so much. I mean, they grow insanely while they're with us. It's actually really, I'm honored to be able to work with them and see how much they grow in such a short time. And now,
I'll go ahead and
some of our students.
And interrupt real quickly.
Sure.
This is Bayu, and this is Shik. I don't want to say too much for them because I'd like you to feel free to ask any questions of them. These guys have been impressive students for me, and I really think they exemplify what you can get out of your time at the IWC as far as language development if you make it a priority, and these guys really have. So I'll let them say what they want to say. I might fill out some information, but I'd like them to speak for themselves as much as possible. Please remember to speak loud though.
Okay, yeah. Hello everybody. I'm very happy to talk about the IWC in the evening. My name is Bai Cham. I live in the United States in the summer. I come from Senegal. I play soccer and I attended the IWC. The IWC helped me a lot to speak, to learn English, because when I was here, my first language was French. I have a lot of problems with speaking English. But the IWC helped me to learn English, to reading, everyone. I'm very, very, very happy to improve myself in the IWC. Thank you.
And so, Shik, if you don't mind, can you talk a little bit about your transition to the high school from the IWC? You can talk about yourself as much as you want, but if you don't mind.
Hello everybody, my name is Shajong. I grew up in Senegal and I came to the United States in December 21st. I go to the IWC just after the winter break. I had some time to talk English and stuff, but after that I got used to it and I was really good. I went to the high school this year, and in the start I was a little scared, nervous, but by the time passed I had some fun. And thanks to the IWC, I was able to make some discussion and speak very well English.
So, Shik, other than English, what other languages do you speak?
French, a little Arabic, and Wolof.
And Wolof? What other languages do you speak also, other than English?
Thank you for joining us. So you mentioned that you were a little nervous at first going to the high school, and then you were able to make some friends and things. Was there anything that helped you feel really welcomed at the high school that made you kind of put you at ease a little bit, whether it was a teacher or just something, some routine of the day that you enjoyed?
The teachers, and also sometimes I was speaking to some teacher from the IWC to know what I can do, and some friends to help me to get used to the high school.
And I don't want to interrupt, but I will interrupt. He's thriving at the high school. He has very good grades.
Can I tell my dad?
What are your grades? You want to tell them your grades?
I got 8 in every classes except the ceramics. I'm not really good in arts.
But he has a B in that.
So at the high school, we want students to have success in the classroom. We also want students to have success in the community, like outside of the classroom. Can you both talk about how you're involved at the high school? Like, what else do you do at Ritenour High School? What else are you involved in?
Me, I play soccer in the soccer club, and that's what.
Me, I play soccer and basketball too.
That's great.
Okay, who's your favorite soccer player? We're a big soccer family too at my house. So who's your favorite soccer player?
Sadio Mane.
Okay. Who's your favorite soccer player?
So you've talked about the IWC. Are there opportunities to make the IWC even better? Are there some ways that we can be better to support students even more?
I don't recall.
For me, because the IWC have a good teacher, and he help you do what you want to do, and help you to do seriously your work, and everything.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to share? Thank you so much for coming here this evening. Do you have a family member with you that you might have brought with you?
Yeah, my father.
Well, we'd like to have him stand up and thank him.
Okay, not here.
He's not here? Okay.
No.
Well, know that we are very proud of you, and you need to send our regards to him as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving to 3.03, report of closed session. The Board of Education met in closed session on December the 8th and 10th, 2022 for the purpose of a discussion of personnel agenda items. And then transition right into 3.04, public comments. Do we have any public comments or something? All right. Well, we will head right into our reports. 4.0, first moving right into 4.01, the President's report. All right. We are so grateful to our friends at the Community Action Agency of St. Louis County who collected hats, scarves, and gloves to help our newcomers at the Ritenour International Welcome Center. Many of our International Welcome Center students are currently experiencing their first winter in a cold climate, so the garments will help keep them warm and safe. The Community Action Agency made the donation just before winter break. The organization is located right in the middle of our district on Woodson Road in Overland. We thank them for their support and generosity in helping our newcomers stay warm this winter. I'm also proud to report that seniors from Ritenour High School have been giving back to the community by volunteering at the Ritenour Co-Care Food Pantry. During November and December, senior class leaders helped sort donated foods that clients received during their visits to the pantry. They will continue helping at the food pantry on a regular basis this year. Ritenour senior students are also collecting monetary donations throughout the year to contribute to Co-Care's Milk Club, which ensures that the pantry can provide fresh dairy products to every client. We thank our students for their time, leadership, and giving spirit. And that concludes my report. Moving to 4.02, Superintendent's Report, Dr. Chris Kilbright.
Thank you, Dr. Albin. So board members, at the beginning of each year, the members of the district leadership team ride the bus routes, the afternoon routes with the drivers. It's a process that we put in place a couple of years back. And we get feedback on both sides. We get positive feedback on that. We also get some questions about that. The goal of the work is to do everything we can to support the drivers, to support student safety as they're dropped off on the first couple of days at school. Another thing that allows is it allows district leadership time to speak with bus drivers about what's going well, what are some opportunities. And through some of the conversations, an opportunity came up to better serve our students. And would like to recognize Ms. Gilliam for taking this opportunity that popped up and running it. And that has to do with providing Spanish language classes for our bus drivers. We had asked a bus driver, Ms. Lakita Conley, to come. And so Lakita, if you'd be willing to come up and have a seat up here at the front. I'm proud to share that 7 of our Ritenour School District bus drivers have been taking Spanish language classes to improve communications with our Spanish-speaking families and our Spanish-speaking students. 3 drivers completed the entire class. Another 4 finished half the lessons. It's something that we're going to be offering again to allow those 4 drivers to finish all the way through and also open it up to all drivers that we have. The classes are teaching drivers how to build basic conversation with students in Spanish and to give some specific instructions in the language. From our perspective, from my perspective, it helps drivers, which they're seeking to make connections with every one of the students they serve, helps it to make it a little bit more simple for them to do that. that's my perspective, but Ms. Conley, thanks for being here tonight. Maybe we can hear from Ms. Conley to hear your feedback on the Spanish language classes, how they impact your work, and maybe how we can make it even better.
The classes was very interesting because, you know, transporting Spanish-speaking kids and, you know, we don't understand them and they don't understand us. It kind of makes it difficult, well, especially for me because I'm a bus driver, so I don't have a permanent route. So, you know, I'm on different routes all the time. And then if you get a kid that doesn't understand you and you don't understand him or her, then it makes things really difficult on getting this kid home. You know, so. The classes, it was really interesting learning that way I can communicate with the kids. It was just basic, you know, information because the classes wasn't so long, so, you know, but it did help out because then I got a new kid on one of the routes I was doing, and he totally didn't speak any English. So I was able to ask him his name, what I learned in the class, and tell him my name, introduce myself because his mom was out there and she didn't speak any English either. So the classes, it really helped out because at first I wouldn't, because I had a run where I did have a kid before the class was offered, and we were just looking at each other, so I had to take him to the school because we didn't. There was absolutely no type of communication. So I think the class is awesome. I hope they let us do it again, because and then it's just something I want to learn anyway, learn how to speak Spanish. But I think it's really good because we have we got exactly 2 routes that are strictly Spanish-speaking kids. So I think it's good that the bus drivers are able to at least some type of communication, even if it's not much, but if, you know, but it's something they should be able to do the basics.
Absolutely. Thank you, and thanks for being here, Ms. Conley.
No
Board members, any questions for Ms. Conley?
No, thank you for taking the time to make extra connections with our kids. I think that's so important, especially when you are the first touch to coming to school and the last one right before they go.
Yes. I mean, you know, and then when I did get that kid, because he was pretty nervous, and then when I was able to communicate a little bit with him, I seen him like light up because at least he knew I knew something. But, and that, you know, because it was he came in the middle of the year, so, you know, it was really new to him. So for me to be able to communicate, I think that helped him out because when I said something in Spanish, he kind of looked, and one of the kids said, "Miss Nikita, you speak Spanish?" So.
That's good.
I'm glad to hear that we are doing this and offering this as a service to our bus drivers. Most definitely appreciate your dedication and commitment to do that because you are that first point of contact for those students, and a lot of times the stories that you're sharing, it helps break down that barrier and helps the child and the family know like, oh, somebody does care, because there's so much power in knowing someone's name and being able to address that person by their name and making them feel like that they're the most important person. So I appreciate the work that you do.
I would hope you guys do offer other classes. If you do, I'm going to sign up.
That's awesome.
Board members would ask that we give Ms. Conley a round of applause for her efforts to be better for kids. Thank you also for coming tonight.
No problem.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
So board members. Let us start it. So board members, we'll continue to work with Ms. Gilliam to offer Spanish language classes, and we'll keep you aware of the next classes they're going to be offered. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Kilbride. 4.03 Student Representative Report. Unfortunately, Mr. Terrence Clark is not here with us this evening, and so he will be presenting his report at the next meeting. So we will move to 4.04 MSBA Report. Mrs. Vanessa Enriquez-Pimbot.
All right. Hit it, Mike.
Welcome to 2023 and the January MSBA Board Report. We begin the new year with a look back at last year.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
In the early 1960s, John F. Kennedy was touring NASA headquarters. During his visit, he encountered a custodian mopping the floors. Kennedy asked the employee, "Why are you working so late?" The custodian replied, because I'm not mopping the floors, I'm putting a man on the moon. The takeaway being, the day-to-day work of all connects to the ultimate goal. That mentality was on full display in your work in 2022. In public education, the vision of a better future for all communities and a mission that strives for the success of all students is as audacious and aspirational as ever. But the day-to-day work from school leaders across the state throughout some of the most challenging circumstances served as an inspiration and will continue to guide us. There were many challenges to be faced in 2022, but once again, engaged community champions rose to the occasion. The 2022 legislative session convened on January 5th. Once again this past year, the advocacy efforts of Missouri school board members had a significant impact on legislation and policy being considered on the state and national levels. Along with parents and community members, local school leaders made their voices heard and advocated on behalf of students and districts across the state.
We have to be an advocate for children across the district. And so when I think about it, I'm advocating for the children that don't live in my house, that don't have a mom that might show up to something and might not know all of, how they can express themselves. So I can be that voice.
Last year, it was as apparent as ever that teachers make the difference. Not all heroes wear capes. Some look just like the rest of us and are hiding in plain sight, inside the four walls of our Missouri classrooms, making a difference and igniting the spark inside students every day. As teacher shortages struck many districts, communities and school boards around the state worked tirelessly to create solutions to uplift and protect the teachers making a difference.
My school board supported me by engaging in tough conversations, some very intense fellowship. That concept of being a champion for our public schools and being a champion in our public schools. And I appreciate all of you for being both of those things.
Our boards of education in Missouri are diligently working to find solutions, and we will continue to do so as we strive to strengthen that workforce. Now, our work is not done as far as the commission. The next thing we really need to look at, and I know there's not a school district in the state of Missouri that hasn't come across this, but another committee is formed to look at the culture and climate.
Ultimately, one of the greatest factors in determining whether or not school districts achieve student success is an engaged and effective local school board. The day-to-day work of implementing policy, board training and development, and ensuring school safety is the work that places schools and communities on a trajectory to the best possible future.
Oscar Wilde has a great quote, one of my favorites. He said, experience is the best teacher because it gives you the test and then the lesson. And we've learned a lot these last 2 years, and I think we need to celebrate that. Celebrate the things we did well, learn from the things we didn't do good and failed at, and move forward and celebrate those.
As the year wound down with the 2022 MSBA annual conference, former NASA astronaut Dr. Bernard Harris reminded the audience at the second general session that the minds of students aren't limited to just reaching the moon, they are infinite.
One of my favorite sayings is that I'm an infinite being with infinite possibilities. And when I'm in a group of students, I will actually force them, especially high school, force them to repeat after me that I am an infinite being with infinite possibilities. That they come into this world with certain skills and abilities that are uniquely theirs, and it's our job to nurture those things. And it's your job, and all of our jobs, to use education to add to those talents that they have. But the most important aspect of this notion of being an infinite being with infinite possibility is this, that each and every one of you and each and every one of them was born for a reason. And we have to help them discover what those reasons are. I can't think of a better thing to do for our young kids, but to enable them, to empower them to be whatever it is that they want to be.
In 2022, MSBA was proud to stand side by side with each and every one of you in supporting our local schools, and we will continue to do so in 2023 and beyond. The day-to-day work continues as we look ahead not just to the moon, but to the infinite possibilities of a new year.
Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
So, a few just reminders and things. The LAC, the Legislative Advocacy Committee meeting that we had in, gosh, was that December?
December.
Oh my days, so I probably already talked about it. Okay, well, it was great. I'll tell you again. The next one is March 3rd. The slide presentation went out for the last one this week, so if you haven't seen it, keep an eye out for that. It was fantastic. I highly recommend coming. Also, there is a survey, a parent guardian survey that MSBA has partnered with DESE on. They are forming this committee for teacher retention and hiring, like trying to understand how to retain teachers, but really how to build that pipeline of teachers. And so they sent us the link. I called Phyllis, who her information was on there, to if we had any questions, because I wanted to understand like what kind of data they were getting, like who, and if we push it out as a district, like are we going to get access to that? How is it aggregated, disaggregated and stuff? And so the way she explained it to me is that they're doing it by region. So they're just trying to get a temperature of like how parents or guardians view the profession of teaching. So to better understand like, just how they feel about it, but also are they encouraging their students or their kids to like go into the profession, kind of get some deeper understanding of that. And they're going to have this data cut up by region. So they'll do like Northwest Missouri, South Missouri, like that. And so I asked if we participated, like, could we still get access to it, even, or if we didn't participate? And she said, yeah, that was going to be part of the plan with DESE. They were going to roll out that data information and have us, have access to it. So that we do have that link in an email. So I don't know if that's something that we could coordinate around, Dr. Kilbright or team.
We can connect.
Yeah. So just wanted to raise that, and I think that concludes our session. Thank you.
I have one quick question. When is Legislative Advocacy Day?
Oh, good point.
I looked it up. It is March the 28th.
Okay, thank you.
I just looked it up.
That's
It's
late.
the end of March, yeah. Yeah, it's the end of March this time. That's on a Tuesday. Did we ever find out why they switched it so late?
The belief is that that's when the movement is going to happen.
Okay.
Later in the session is when it's really going to start to ramp up.
Okay. I think that's Driver's Day.
Yeah. It is.
I know I plan on going, so thank you so much for reporting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Absolutely. Moving to 4.05, Special School District Report. This is Jennifer Lawrence.
I don't really have anything to report since our last meeting, because I reported everything about the governing council at that one. So I don't have anything else. Do you have anything from the PAC at all?
No. All right. All's quiet, starting off from the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
All right, well, we will move on to 5.0, our business items, and then to 5.01, RHS schedule framework. Dr. Matthew Schuler. Come on up.
I'm bringing a few members of the committee with me up. Good evening.
Absolutely, come on up.
We got chairs behind you, right over there. Any more chairs? Or you can stand.
I could stand. I stand. You guys want to sit or stand? These are, we're about half of the committee that, for the framework this evening. I'll let you guys introduce yourself to the board.
Yeah, I'm Beth Landers. I'm the French teacher at RHS.
I'm Paul Kennedy. I'm one of the art teachers.
Colette LaFilliard, English Language Art.
Dan Jones, German.
Matthew Schuler, Associate Principal. And we're here tonight to talk to you about a schedule framework for the high school for 2023-2024 that really comes out of two separate things. We're trying to ensure that we are in compliance with MSIP 6 in terms of our time for teachers for planning purposes, and really also as a way of retention to ensure that our teachers have the ability to spend time during their day creating high-quality lessons, working with other teachers in their PLCs, using student data to really move students, and we want to make sure our teachers have the time to do that. So we had a committee come together for this purpose. And what the committee, the initial framework that the committee landed on was moving from a 7-period day to an 8-period day at Ritenour High School. An A day, B day, odd, even, however you want to frame it, and that would kind of just rotate on and on. We'd start the week A, B, A, B, A. The next week would begin as a B day. In terms of academic classes, it wouldn't look a whole lot different from that side of things. Students would still take 7 classes. They would still have an advisory course. The main difference with the advisory course, though, would be that it wouldn't be fixed as 1 period in the day as it is now. Some students might have it 2nd period, some students might have it 4th period, so it would kind of rotate throughout the day. And in order to accommodate going towards an 8-period day from 7, not all of our teachers would necessarily have an advisory period. With this framework, we came to the conclusion that our teachers would teach a course load of 6 out of 8 classes, which would allow them to have a planned period every day instead of the current situation where, some days of the week our teachers do not have any planned time. We'll talk about more. Originally, the committee talked about eliminating the early release and doing common plan for PLCs, but I'll get to why we moved away from that in a second. But this plan would adhere to all of the MSIP 6 guidelines, but I would expect we would see an increase in class size by about 2 to 3 students per class period, going from 7 to 8 periods in the day. Just an example of the bell schedule and what this would look like. It's fairly consistent to what we're doing on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, except for the times are shifted just slightly for a better balance, and then to allow on our lunch schedule to have a 5-minute kind of break between lunches to make sure we're getting students back to their classes before the next group of students leaves. So we took it to the faculty. Most of our faculty responded very positively to this plan. A little over 80% supported it. Then we decided to reach out to a focus group of students. Our student focus group strongly supported having early release time. They also wanted us to look at advisory to make sure that when we do it, we eliminate some of the unstructuredness in it, make it more structured, and provide more ways to support them in their classes. So after their input, we decided to send out a survey to parents to see what their thoughts were on early release. About 240 responded. About 53% also wanted to keep early release, which I did not expect. I thought more parents would actually be interested in eliminating that. And then we also took this to students, and most of the students also are in support of early release. As a result of the parent and student feedback, we came back to kind of revisions on our original plan and said, let's continue our early release PLC time that we have built in, and then still provide the teachers with a common plan every day, but leave the PLC part to our Thursday afternoons and continue to do that. We also said that we would create an advisory committee to look at how we restructure advisory in this model, because the real purpose of it is much more of a focus on working with students, progress monitoring, and then ensuring that students are successful in their academic classes. So coming back to that, we would then have an early release schedule that would also rotate between an A and B day. One Thursday would be A, the next would be a B. The times are compressed slightly, but it's still essentially the same schedule. We still would operate on 4 lunch periods, except on the shorter day. Between 3rd and 4th lunch, we wouldn't be able to allow that 5 minutes of time. So, but other than that, it would essentially be the same. we are first wanting to answer any questions that you might have about this proposal. You guys get all the questions.
First, let me say I appreciate the diligence in seeking feedback from the various stakeholders, being very intentional in that work. One question I do have surrounding the PLCs or professional learning communities, if you're talking about your common time, I'm assuming that's when all the teachers in that particular subject area come together, correct? And that's still going to happen once a week now?
Correct. So Thursday afternoons would still be common PLC time for the building. Also, we would continue our core department, our EOC course PLCs. They would have an additional PLC time built in during the week to provide support for those critical courses.
And those courses, do you want to talk about?
So that would be our English 2 course, government, Algebra 1, and biology.
And those would factor into our accreditation?
Correct, correct, yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions?
When would this go into effect?
We would look at doing this for next school year.
Yeah, okay.
I want to thank you for the thoughtful approach, because going through Ritenour and knowing the schedule that I went through, I don't know that I was ever asked, nor my father was ever asked, what was going to go into a day, ever. It was always very structured. And so it's nice to see the evolution of how really understanding our community and understanding our students and understanding our teachers and having that conversation. So I know it's really hard work. And thank you very much for your hard work that you put into this.
I appreciate your flexibility with the plan time and being patient, because I knew as the shift was made to the current schedule, there was also the commitment to form a committee to study on like version 2.0 of how the schedule is going to be approved. Just appreciate your commitment to be patient and flexible as the schedule 2.0 is being worked out. Do you have any thoughts on when you do have those days currently where there is no plan time? How are those days different from the days that you do?
It's the night before that's really rough. So my Sunday, because I don't have any plan time on Monday or Wednesday, and I have a very short plan on Friday when we have some periods. So my Sunday night is a late night, it's really tough. And then my Tuesday nights are really late because I'm preparing 3 classes. I have 3 preps to do for the next day. So it's late, so I arrived for a very heavy day, already a little tired, a little short of sleep. And then that day I'm with students from 8:05 to 3 straight, except for my 20-minute lunch. And so, and I feel like the students don't get the best of me either, especially by the end of the day, my 7th period students. So, and on the days when I do have a plan, especially the long plan, then I'm better rested and I have more for the students, just having a break in the day. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, it's a little tiring sometimes. Comes with the territory.
Agreed.
Well, thank you all. Thanks for your feedback.
I was going to say, I do appreciate you adding into the rotation the A, B, and then just letting it go ahead and reset itself, you know. And the reason I say that is because I feel like just having 4 periods to move through, I don't know why, but I just feel like it's less chaos, you know, constantly. So I appreciate that. And it just seems like when you guys would hit Friday, it would be like, oh, by the time you get started and going and everything, it just seems like everything goes.
It makes every week where we don't have school, like on a Monday, you know, coming up, weird too.
Yeah.
So this will keep everything kind of,
yeah,
just a little bit more in line.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Get out of here.
2, return to learning plan approval. Dr. Chris Gilroy.
So board members, I'm here on the return to learning plan. You know, as you know, we've kept up the monthly presentations for some months, even though this is no longer required. In the name of communication, come to you on a monthly basis. Our current data COVID dashboard, most recent one that's up is right before winter break. We did not publish a COVID dashboard last week because we had 2 days of student attendance. There will be a COVID dashboard that gets posted tomorrow. Our data is staying somewhat consistent. We have 11 positive cases across the district. This dashboard does track only COVID, not RSV, it's not influenza A, B. It is COVID, it's COVID specific. So, as I've shared, we continue the presentation. We did test recently and got feedback around the dashboard. Majority, just north of 60%, do see value in maintaining the dashboard. Although there was data to show that people don't always consistently check the dashboard, there was some level of feedback of, oh, it can't hurt to keep it going. I personally think there is some value in keeping the dashboard, but I also do think it's time to test the community again, and I'll speak on that in just a bit. The other strategy that we continue is a threshold of 2% by building. We have not hit that 2% threshold since we've implemented it. And even now, at the building level, there is no building that is close to that 2% threshold, which if we hit, we'd be mask mandatory in that space for not less than 2 weeks. So the recommendation that I seek your approval on is to maintain the dashboard, to maintain the threshold. But I do think at the end of January, it is time to survey the community and to pull the Return to Learning Committee together to talk through and explore an exit strategy from these two remaining components of the Return to Learning plan. This survey and this feedback from students, from staff, and from the community will be brought to the committee and be brought to you in February at the February meeting. Because I do believe we do need to have an exit strategy from this Return to Learning plan, from these two remaining strategies that are out there. But I also want to come with data from students, from staff, and from the community as we have that conversation. And again, we all have perspectives. We just want to make sure that our perspectives are aligned with all that we serve, being the students, staff, and the community. So for right now, making a recommendation that for the next 30 days until next we meet, these two pieces of the plan stay in place.
Do we have any questions? Do we move on it? Yeah. I move to approve the Return to Learning plan as selected.
Second.
Sorry.
That's okay. Mrs.
What?
Slonis?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGarden?
Yes.
Mrs. Glover-Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez-Plimbut?
Yes.
And I also vote yes.
Sorry,
Thank you,
you
Dr.
take
Fulbright.
it, Sorry. No, I said, oh, I'm slacking.
I
just thought I'm gonna give it a go. It's all right.
No, you're fine.
This
Moving
was easy
to
though, so I was like, let me try.
5.03 Ritenour redistricting project update. Mr. Doug Bray. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to give you an update on the progress we've made on the redistricting project and sort of the plans for the future. So I will share our mission and our vision. And as our equity statement, just involving everyone, our parents, staff, community, and valuing everyone's individual perspectives and cultural diversity. This is a look at our current district map, and this actually, this has got the pointer in it. All right, sweet. This is even better. So these are all of the planning areas. So each of these areas specifically has a certain number of students in it, no more than like 20 to 25 students. And it's basically like a puzzle. So eventually, if we need to move any places around or we need to look at changing things, these will be interchangeable, and we'll be able to work with our demographer in a computer program. He can just show us what these things look like. And so that's sort of the next step for us after I present to you tonight. If you're okay with the parameters that we're provided, I'll give him parameters, and then we'll start working on the map and taking a look at sort of what the future boundaries of the Ritenour School District look like. So what we did in December, we invited all Ritenour families to attend in-person meetings at our 6 elementary schools and our 2 middle schools. It was not highly attended. We had about 80 community members that RSVP'd, but about 50 that attended the meetings. I will tell you though, from being at the meetings, I loved it. It was so much, it was really fun getting to know our community. Mr. Eaton and I were at a meeting at Iveland, and ours only was in Spanish. And so we only had Spanish-speaking families that came to ours, so it was a little bit different. but it was also really great to get their feedback. But it was just really fun. I was at Marvin as well, and just to talk to families, and there's a lot of other questions that came up that we were able to answer, things that we were able to help families with bus routes and just all kinds of different things. So it was fun to go out into the community. So at those meetings, we gave background on the project, and we asked everyone to discuss their planning, what they thought we should incorporate for our planning areas. And so actually, I'll show these to you in just a second on the screen. But we asked, sort of gave them a list of parameters and asked if they wanted to have any of their own parameters as we look. And so what those parameters are, and I'll go through these in just a second, but they're just, they're facets of the map and the things that people would want to see within a map, like not having to travel very far to school, or not splitting up like neighborhoods or splitting up apartment complexes and those sort of things. So really, really simple, but at the same time very impactful whenever you're building a map. And so we also shared a survey with families from December 20th through January 4th seeking feedback. We had 74 responses. I will tell you that the timing was not ideal, but it was also necessary for us to be able to meet the timeline of having this done in a timely manner. So, but I will tell you that it was really, if you've gotten to attend the meetings, I really enjoyed being out and talking to everyone. It was fun. So just as a reminder of the overall goals of our work, we want to work to balance the enrollment in class sections in K through 8. Where our goal is to create feeder schools for our middle schools. So right now, we have 5 elementary schools that feed into our 2 middle schools. So really, we want to have 3 that feed into each.
6.
I'm sorry, 6 elementary schools, 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to think about that. Actually, I think it might be 4. Anyway, I should probably not get too caught up on that right now.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, we want to have 3. Our 6 elementary. Oh man, this is really tough now. So we have 3 of our elementary schools each attend 1 middle school.
As I say, as
I got
Rich would say,
I
take 2.
I did it. I got it. Address the impact of previous boundary decisions. I can go back and some of the craziness like of the map, like some of the crazy shapes and things like that we have going in there. Maybe address some of those as well. And then look at the capacity and the programming among our schools. We did have some built-in parameters that we actually came up with as a group prior to the process, and so we incorporated those, and we also asked our families about those as well. And so I'm not sure if you would want me to read all of the parameters. These are all the parameters that we asked our participants to consider. So there's a lot, and so what we did during the meetings and electronically, we had a sheet, and everyone was asked to rate whether or not they thought this is the rate based on whether or not they thought it was positive versus negative, and then we asked them to rank their top 5 at the end. And so I'll share those with you as well. So we gave everyone all of these planning parameters, and so I can give you the results. I can do a drum roll or something like that. But so I did these both as in-person meetings and as our virtual meetings. And so our highest rated top priorities was to provide equity in class sizes, resources, and staffing. Allow students to stay in their current school until they move to the next level. So if they were like a 4th grader, they would want to stay in their school until their 5th grade, or 7th grade until 8th grade. To the greatest extent possible, avoid students crossing identified dangerous streets. That was throughout, though. That was something that was pretty consistent throughout everything. Eliminate the divided apartment complexes among elementary schools so that students living in these complexes would attend 1 elementary school. And then we had a tie for the last ones. Provide equal classroom sizes that are at or below DESI standards, and then eliminate overcrowding and balancing enrollment by school. So those are very similar, but we were able to provide what the DESI standards look like, so we gave that as part of our presentation as well, so everybody sort of had an idea. The lowest rated were to provide racial and socioeconomic balance, operate buildings at capacity, and allow siblings to attend the same schools, which is a little bit strange because they wanted their kids to stay in the current school, but it sort of makes sense. But and you'll see that the lowest rated are pretty consistent among the in-person, and then this is the online. So if you take a look at the online survey, the providing racial and socioeconomic balance, operating building capacities was also one of the lowest rated. And our school district is naturally diverse, and so I think that's why those were rated so. They weren't really rated very highly. So the top 5 priorities on the online survey, they're somewhat similar. The only one that it was a little bit different was minimize the travel and maximize the safety in travel, and assign students the closest possible school, and don't divide subdivisions and neighborhoods. That was a lot for them to consider. But I think too with the online it's a little bit different because they didn't have the presentation, so they were they looked at the presentation, they watched the video that we provided, and then they were making their decisions based on that as well. But they were very, very similar. The last one, the lowest rated, dividing the community south of Page Avenue into no more than 2 elementary schools. I don't think people really understood on the online survey as well, so that one's very, very low rated. So the reason that I'm here tonight actually is we wanted to ask for your support in providing these 6 parameters to our demographer so that he can start to develop the maps, and then we can bring the maps back to you later this spring, hopefully for approval. And so the 6 elements are providing equity in class sizes, resources, and staffing. To the greatest extent possible, avoid students crossing identified dangerous streets, and those are spelled out in board policy. Eliminate the divided apartment complexes among elementary schools so the students living in these complexes can attend one elementary school. Provide equal classroom sizes that are at or below DESE standards. Eliminate overcrowding and balance enrollment by schools. And then minimize the travel and maximize safety in travel, and assign students to the closest possible school, and don't divide subdivisions and neighborhoods. So, if you have any questions about that, I know that was really quickly and it was a lot of information very quickly.
So with the board's support, these are the 6 parameters that would be shared with the demographer, and you shared that these would be the parameters that would be used to create map samples.
Yes.
Can you then talk about how that information would be brought back to the community?
Absolutely. So I'll go to the next time in terms of the timeline. So what we'll do is this month we will pull together a committee and we'll work with our demographer to sort of look at some different options for the maps and see how the maps balance out in terms of school attendance and in terms of overall population within schools. In February, with dates to be determined, we hope to have a series like 2 to 3 community meetings or open houses to share these boundary maps and gather additional feedback. Part of that will be if you are in one of those areas that are impacted by a change. So if we're changing your boundary area, we'll be able to identify those families, and we'll be able to send them a specific message saying, we encourage you to come to this meeting because your boundary for your school, your elementary school might change, or your middle school might change next year. So we'll be able to, so I guess we get a little bit more community involvement because we'll be able to communicate those messages with families as well. So we want to be very purposeful in the way that we communicate with families and just encourage them to come to the meetings, to take a look at the new maps, to see what give their feedback, and as well in terms of developing those new maps. And then ultimately in March we would hope to have those maps bring to you at the work session to take one final look at, and then we would ask for approval at the March board meeting. So. I'm not sure if you have any additional questions. I thank you for your support and your patience throughout this process. We really appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been something that I've been learning along the way. It's not something that's sort of natural to the communications position. So it's been interesting and fun to learn. I'm also really excited to report that the state finally got back to me today about our last round of data. So we will have all the data that we need from the state hopefully tomorrow, and we'll be able to move forward with everything. And of all the things that have been the most challenging has actually been the patience and waiting for the data to come from the state from our end, because it just takes a little bit of time. But thank you.
Sounds wonderful, Doug. There's a lot of work going into that, and I'm glad that we're reaching out to the community to make sure that they get their eyes on that too.
I want to say thank you to Doug and to the rest of the team that worked to offer these meetings in so many different locations and so at different times that we were able to talk to all of the community and not expecting people to go to one building, and that we were going to where they were. So I want to thank you for taking that time and effort to do that.
Might be an opportunity, board members, as we get closer to February, working together, figuring out that we've got the right mix to drive as much participation as possible. We've attempted some strategies. Clearly the 50 that were in attendance, I think we can do better, for this last meeting. So, Doug and I will be reaching out in the future to get some of your feedback about what we can do. And this was a suggestion from Lisa today in our meeting. Just what can we do to ensure that we've got a critical mass at that meeting in February. So be looking for your feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people will become, once they realize that it's going to change for them personally, I think people will become much more involved in the process. And so I think being able to take the map and take a look at who's moving, and even we'll invite everyone, but we want to be very strategic and very specific on families that will be moved from their schools, so that we're able to ask them to come to the meeting, because they can provide the crucial feedback in terms of what their thoughts are as well in terms of the process. So our goal is to really be very purposeful in the next round of communications. So, and sending it out in December was not ideal, but it was also, we were excited to have people that came to the meetings. We were very excited to get their feedback as well. And so I think once it impacts people and they know that it's going to impact them directly, they'll be much more willing to be involved in the process.
Then I have two quick questions. Do you guys include the live birth data that we get, so like planning for what is coming?
That's actually, yes, so that's the last key piece, that was the one piece I'm waiting for. The 2021 live birth data just came online from the state, and so that was the one thing that I was talking about, that's the last piece. So we're going to do projections out to 2028. And so we'll be able to take a look at projections. So the maps will not only be based on like what we have now, he's going to take all the live birth data and we'll be able to see projections. And so that way we wouldn't draw lines for now if they were going to be greatly changed in like 2027, 2028.
And so that would also include our children that are in our early childhood center?
Yes, that's absolutely, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And so the latest live birth data that we have is 2021. The 2022 won't be available until the middle of the year. And so, but we'll still be able to look out for our early childhood and kindergarten class into the future. So that was one of the key, that's one of the things that's been sort of holding us up. And I'm super excited to hear back today that they said they were going to get that to us tomorrow. So. It's also very helpful for kindergarten kickoff because then we have all the data to be able to, up until 2021 now, we don't have to ask for that data from the state. We can just get that data and mail the postcards out as well. So, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Absolutely. Moving to 5.04, Shafit's contract agreement. Mr. Michael Smith.
Hi.
So, as you know, graduation ceremonies for Ritenour are typically held at Shafit's Arena. Had a little bit of a hiatus during the pandemic, but glad to say that we were able to return there last year. Graduation ceremonies for the graduating class of 2023 are scheduled for 6 o'clock p.m. on Saturday, June 3rd at Shafit's. And we've reserved the Shafit's Arena and the adjacent practice courts for graduate staging as well. As typically what we do every year. Last year, the Board of Education approved extending our contract with Shafit's for the class of 2024, and that date is Saturday, June 1st, 2024. And in order to reserve this venue for the class of 2025, I'm requesting that the board allow us to hold the date of Saturday, May 31st, 2025, which is the Saturday immediately following Memorial Day, as is our standard in our practice.
Any questions? We don't have any questions? We need a motion.
Motion to approve the Shafit's Arena contract extension for the May 31st, 2025 Ritenour High School graduation ceremony as presented.
Second. Mrs. Enriquez Primpa?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glover Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGarden? Yes. Mrs. Lonis?
Yes.
I also vote yes.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Thank
I'll
you.
go far.
Well, I'm not going to go for it.
5.05 construction update.
As you know, well-maintained and safe facilities help us achieve the district mission and vision. Our facilities should provide the best physical environment for learning to occur, and all district schools should provide consistent and equitable environments. This month's report, I have 4 items, and that is HVAC replacement at I-1, the RHS Cafe and Fitness Center construction. There's abatement that we need to discuss. A stormwater system repair at Ritenour High School, and some emergency HVAC pipe repairs at Booger. For I-1, there are 2 Daikin units at I-1 that require replacement. They're 12 years old. The expected useful life of those units is 15 years if they're well maintained. As we know, there are some certain things we didn't know how to do that we recently hired another company to take care of. But currently, the office area of the school cannot properly heat or cool without replacing those two units. TMI, which is the company that we've been working with, provided a quote of $66,875 to replace those units. That replacement comes with a 10-year equipment and labor warranty. And therefore, I'm recommending that the board approve the TMI quote of $66,875 for the replacement of 2 Daikin VRV units at Ivy. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Questions? Do you want this now?
Go to each one individually.
What?
I think this is the only recommendation in the report.
Okay.
That's correct.
Can I do it?
Do it.
All right. I'd like to recommend that the approval for the proposal for TMI for the replacement of 2 Daikin VRV units at Iveland Elementary School totaling $66,875 as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Lomas?
Yes.
Mr. Garvin?
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Eden?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez Dunlap?
Yes.
And I also vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Next, we'll discuss Ritenour High School Cafe and Fitness Center construction. This is more informational. It's necessary to perform abatement in order to proceed with construction at the high school. The areas under construction, those areas were built originally in the 1950s. And abatement in older buildings is common when renovations take place in older buildings. The areas requiring abatement are the hall by the cafeteria, the landings east and west of the north gym stage, the current trainer's room, there's a classroom next to the trainer's room, and also 2 storage rooms. In order not to interfere with the routines of the school, and to stay on track with construction, some of this work began over winter break. With the assistance of John A. Jurgio and Associates, we received bids. Midwest Service Group provided the low bid of $59,887. And as you know, they've completed several abatement projects in Ritenour over the years, and they do great work. Because this work has already begun and is underway, the purchase order for the service is listed in the purchase orders over $5,000 section in the consent agenda. So I'm not asking for your vote now, but when you approve the consent agenda, it's on there. But I'm happy to answer questions.
When do you expect for it to be completed?
A lot of it has been completed, so we're expecting the majority of the abatement to be completed next week. If it takes longer than next week, it shouldn't take much more than a week after that. Okay. Other questions? Next, discuss the stormwater system repair at the high school. There is a large underground stormwater system under the student parking lot. That system is inspected annually, and that's required to be inspected annually, and it has been in great shape. We've been discussing preventative maintenance for several months with our consultant Stormwater STL. The PM work was not urgent to begin, but it was one of those things that we had been planning and getting ready for just in case. However, at some point, and we believe it was during that big storm in July, one of the large filter cartridges was dislodged. This was noticed by MSD when they came out for an inspection, and they required us to make that repair immediately, knowing that it would take several days of work. There was an opening in Stormwater STL's schedule over winter break That gave us the opportunity to repair, therefore it wouldn't disrupt the parking lot during school. And so we did choose to start that work over winter break. The maintenance of that stormwater system will cost a total of $29,925. And again, because that work is already complete, that contract is listed in the consent agenda as well. It was one of those things where we were required to make the repair because the one filter was dislodged. In order to repair and replace that one filter, all of the other filters, and they're this high and this big around, had to be removed. And so it became necessary then just to do the PM as we were removing all of those giant filters. But I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Because it was due to a storm that it was dislodged, do we get any like insurance?
That's one of those that's not covered. I know. So, and I tried. So.
Thanks for trying.
So, are there other questions? And finally, talk about an emergency repair at Booter that occurred over winter break as well. HVAC pipe at Booter, is a high priority for our Proposition S planning. The pipe in many areas is brittle and breaks easily. And as you know, most of Booter's units are ceiling mounted. When breaks occur in those systems, that means that the 140-degree water rains down from the ceiling. For safety of staff and students, we decided to conduct emergency replacement of pipe in 7 classrooms over winter break. There were pipes in that hallway that actually had broken recently, and we repaired, and we continue to have fear that there would be breaks over this winter break. So to be safe, we decided to replace the pipe in 7 classrooms since we were planning on doing that anyway due to progress. We have some estimates for the repairs. The total hasn't come in yet, but those are just some estimates. And they're also, when it does, when we do get the final bills for this repair, that will be paid for by the Proposition S budget, as was part of the Proposition S plan. But I'm happy to answer questions.
So with this emergency repair being paid for out of Prop S dollars, what are we not doing in the Prop S plan? Or did we have this extra money?
This was one of the high priorities when we started planning Prop S. So one of the very first things that we said, what will be important to complete for HVAC repairs, one of the very first things at the top of the list was this pipe repair at Booter. Now we have other high priority items, but this was one of the things we said this will absolutely have to take place. Since we knew that was high priority for Prop S, we decided to go ahead and get that done over break, just in order to keep it safe.
I did want to ask one question too on the cafe and fitness. I was not going to ask it, but I got to go back and ask it.
Yeah.
So, as many times as this has been before us, is there a reason why the abatement wasn't included before?
So when I presented last month, I was still gathering information. We didn't have all the bids available at that time, and I didn't want to give you incomplete information. So we were still gathering bids, and we didn't have all of that information to give you at that time.
Thank you for that clarification.
Well,
On top of that, I wanted to ask, so where will that funding come out of, the $90,000 for those 2 projects? So the stormwater and the abatement?
stormwater will come from the maintenance, repairs and maintenance budget.
Okay.
And the abatement will come from the Prop S as part of the construction for the fitness center and cafeteria. Because it's part of that project.
right, any other questions? Good. All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to 5.06, 2023-2024 bus driver salary schedule, Dr. Michael James.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Give Mike a moment to pull up the presentation. Very happy to be here tonight regarding the bus driver salary schedule. I think we can all agree that, I think it was said earlier, bus drivers are the first ones that our students see in the morning and the last ones often in the day before they head off to home. And it's pivotal that we get our kids to school daily and safely, right? With competent and now ever more Spanish speaking as much as possible bus drivers. So I think that Nikita Conley earlier exemplified really the quality of our drivers. I just really wanted to emphasize that when we speak about our equity statement, vision, and mission. Our drivers are really on the front lines doing this work. Talk a little bit about the process. In the process of considering a salary proposal, I reviewed costs of providing each employee a step on the current step and increasing the base salary on the schedule. I also reviewed comparisons to other St. Louis County school districts, and that's what really brings me here with this proposal today. Currently, our bus driver salary rankings, and if you may remember, just a few short years ago, we were ranked near the top for bus driver salaries. Well, there's been some movement, particularly last spring and this summer, that has come to fruition this year. And so currently, our starting salary of $16.24 an hour is ranked 12 out of 13 in area districts, and our maximum salary of $27.24 is 3 out of 13 among local St. Louis County districts. We also noticed a trend where we were adding steps each year for drivers. The trend is actually to shrink the number of steps from starting salary to maximum salary. And really the thinking there is give drivers a shorter time to reach the top, and over the duration of their career they'll end up earning more money. So you'll notice in the file shared with you in the executive content that the recommendation for the 2023-24 bus driver salary reduces the salary schedule from 21 steps to 15 steps, and that's primarily by removing the bottom 5 steps and starting step 1 really is similar to what the previous step between step 7 and 8 really, so it includes a step down, across and down for everyone. It also compresses some of the steps at the top for drivers. This reassignment ensures every driver gets a minimum of $1.60 per hour for their increase. It results in a minimum salary of $20.24 and would rank us at 1 out of 13, the top starting salary, and a maximum salary of $28.84, which is also the maximum that puts us at ranked 1. I do want to point out that everyone else is talking about their salary increases also, so it's very possible that when I'm back next year that we may not be at step 1, because this is a very competitive market, or ranked 1. This increase to the overall schedule is a 7.61% increase, so just at 2% higher than the average proposal for other support staff and staff members. The total salary schedule, which includes benefits, is an increase of $50,248 for the budget. I'm open to any questions you may have. I do want to let you know that drivers were spoken with last Friday to talk about the salary increase and moving to a 15-step model instead of currently 21, because previously you're working on this model of we'll keep increasing until we get to 25, and they had no concerns about that. They were very pleased with the salary hourly increase that they would be receiving. They were also very pleased that we are making it a priority to stay competitive with driver salaries, and then they took the opportunity to share other concerns they might have with us. So Mr. Ritenour was there and listened closely and responded, and so was Charles Love. And so we've also identified with Brian Sinker, he was very instrumental in helping us gain some knowledge through his inside knowledge of some of the movements happening behind the scenes in the driver salary schedules in the area, also in terms of shrinking the number of steps. Ultimately, I'm asking for your approval of the bus driver salary schedule for next year. I'm open to any questions you may have.
Because board members, we're in a good place. So Lakita Conley is a substitute bus driver. The fact that we have a substitute who can fill in as necessary is pretty unique. Whereas other districts are having to make instructional changes based on the lack of available drivers. We're in a good place, and we think this recommendation will keep us in a good place.
You know, we've said tonight that they're the first person that our kids see and the last person they see in the day. And as a parent, that's a big step of faith to put your kid on a vehicle with somebody else. And if this is the numbers that we need to be at to continue to recruit the highest level and the best bus drivers there are, then
Sounds good. And they also deal with a lot too.
Yeah, and?
You know.
They spoke to us about that. They did. They shared some of the concerns that do impact safety. When they're dealing with a lot, they impact safety on the bus.
Thankfully, also we're investing in them with teaching Spanish and getting that language across, so I think that's also very important. I think that makes them feel like they're part of the whole.
It makes a big difference when you can communicate with the drivers on the bus.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Refresh my memory, do we send them through like the trauma-informed training as well? Do we have access to those trainings?
I don't have a recent recollection of that. I know that Ms. Hahn has met with them in previous years, but...
We did it right before the pandemic, but we haven't done it since then, so it's... CPI training.
Do CPI?
Yeah, we need to do CPI training.
Oh, we need to?
You had it before,
Yeah.
but it's been 7 years.
Okay.
It hasn't been since I've been in the position.
All right, any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to, for the approval of the 2023-2024 bus driver salary schedule as presented.
second.
Mrs. Enriquez Flipper?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Ms. Livercruz?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mrs. Lomas?
Yes.
And I have so vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving 5.07, personnel recommendations. Dr. Michael J.
Personnel recommendations tonight. I'm here to recommend items 1 through 22 for your consideration and approval. I'm open to any questions you may have.
So, I'm seeing that we have another vacancy, number 9, or upcoming vacancy that we'll have. Oh, no, that's immediate, never mind, sorry.
Yes.
Is that other opportunities at salary, or is that something different?
So it is based around salary, and there's a draw to industry where there's also a shortage. Salaries are increasing. We did monitor and look at our current nursing salaries, and we're at the top for starting, and we're near the top for maximum. But it is an issue where this particular nurse identified that she had an opportunity that not only fit the salary, but which is sometimes difficult, but to fit a schedule that she would like. And she took that opportunity. She did share some other concerns with us, and we considering that and talking with other nurses. So primarily around salary.
Number 2 and 5 or 4. If they're pursuing another opportunity, are there any themes there or?
Yeah, so number 2, this is this person's second year with us and really was feeling like they, despite lots of support provided, really was feeling like they were not making the progress they would like to in their profession and felt like they would like to pursue working in a different environment and probably locally. And that staff member is committed to finishing the year with us. I met with the staff member at length, and the principal continues to meet with them to support them. But just they struggled with management of the classroom and really felt like they were going to pursue another opportunity. And then the 4th is unfortunately another example is really someone new to the profession that quickly deciding that they're going to leave the profession. It was too stressful and it was consuming their life. And as you can see, that resignation was immediate, somewhat immediate. You'll see later on we were able, luckily, not really luckily because we were anticipating this, we were planning for this, we were able to fill that position. And had actually time to do a transition between the teacher leaving and the teacher filling the space for the students and parents. And an example, I'll just mention that example just to highlight is an example of our effort for our Grow Your Own efforts with our support staff members. So that's a success story for number 12.
And number 17, the last name is, there's a typo, right?
So I have a mark on my copy with a pen, and I assume that they made the correction on that copy, but I'm guessing not.
So not to belabor this conversation, but 8 and 8 and 11, when we look at these roles, they were kind of put in place as those point of contact or relationship builders. So I'm assuming that we are factoring in that potentially these may also be high turnover roles. So, I just putting that out there, like, are we thinking about that we're putting people in place to be specifically relationship builders, but yet these may potentially be high turnover roles? So what's going to be that direct impact?
I will say one thing we've talked about, particularly for number 11, is the potential to consider sending them through the same training that number 8 receives, to get everyone that same level of training that the St. Louis County offers. Number 8 actually is somewhat of a success story also. That person has accepted a teaching position at AIC from special school district. So a high quality person and really is, again, moving from support staff to a teacher in the same building. So that's positive. The other person honestly worked hard. I've had met with several times, but in that relationship building at times was coming into conflict with students and with staff, and we were working through some of those issues, and they ultimately chose that maybe this is not the right role. It's a challenging role. And so it also just causes us to consider how do we support people in that role and what other trainings can we provide.
Thank you.
I'd like to motion that we approve personnel agenda items number 1 through 22 as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Lomas?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Mrs. Clifford Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez Plummer?
Yes.
And I also vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you. All right. We are now moving to 5.08, appointment of Board Education Secretary. Michelle Clover, the current secretary to the Board of Education, will be retiring as of February 28, 2023. The Board of Education needs to appoint a new secretary for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year. A member of the board or staff member may fill the position. If the board chooses to have a staff member serve in the position, the appointment of DeQuinda Woods, executive assistant to be the superintendent, is recommended.
I would like to motion to appoint DeQuinda Woods as secretary of the Ritenour Board of Education starting on February 1st through June 30th of 2023.
Second.
That was like, Jinx.
That's going to be the hardest part, is figuring out who said second.
Mrs. Enriquez Plumbo? Yes. Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glover Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Garden?
Yes.
Mrs. Lomas?
You sure you don't want to stay? Okay. Well, then I'm happy to have your slip. I vote yes.
Absolutely.
Plans are in motion.
Thank you for your wonderful service and welcome.
Yes.
And I also vote yes.
Michelle votes.
All right,
Yeah,
motion
plans
carries.
first.
All right, moving to 510, board member comments. Does the board have anything that they wish to share for this evening? 5.9, sorry. 5.09, Board of Education self-evaluation. Let's move right through it. Shrink it up. All right, what I figured is that we pick the top ones where we weren't just looking at performance fully meets, and so kind of go through those and look at our answers and share what we need to share. Because I believe that these were fairly straightforward. I don't know if anybody had any problems or questions with these questions on this particular segment as well, because remember, we're always trying to improve to make sure that we're moving things forward. Let's see. The first one where we had the board performs all actions in public board meetings in accordance with local, state, and federal laws. Question 2. I just wanted to kind of bring attention to this because there are times when we ask questions and get information outside the meeting, which maybe should be included within the meeting. I think that's a very good point, so that we can be a little bit more thoughtful. I think there's a lot of conversations and processing that goes on, and so I think that's always important. And anybody else wish to share on that one? Does that kind of, everybody agree with that? All right. Moving down. Okay, question 8. The board identifies for the superintendent specific information needed to assist the board in making final decisions. And I think the overview from what I understand when I was reading through this is that it's always, I think we can always do better to review our information before we come to board meetings, so that we kind of know what we're looking at ahead of time, because there is quite a volume of information. And I have to admit, I remember when I was working with my brother and he would get these big envelopes and he'd like have to read through all the paper copies of everything that we now get online. I think it's interesting whenever we can stand and reflect and how spoiled we are now that we have everything on one spot. But sometimes I know that our lives get so busy that we have to make sure to pause and kind of reflect on it. Because I know sometimes I'll read through information and I have to think about it for a second, close the book, and then come back to it too. Does anybody else have anything else to share with this particular one?
I will say for myself that I used to ask Dr. Kilbright a lot of questions or send information to him, and I've kind of lost that a lot, and so I need to get back to sending in questions in advance or reaching out in advance. So that's something I need to do better at.
Yeah, I would just say with that though, if we're talking about like going back to the previous comment, if people are asking questions or getting information outside of the meeting, then that also needs to come up in the meeting. I know like we try to be very diligent about if from our president's meeting, if we ask a question, then that also comes up during the work session or business meeting. So just if we are going to increase that frequency or start that process, then just still being mindful of making sure, hey, like I sent a question, and generally Dr. Kilbar will generally say too, like a board member reached out with a question or something like that.
Okay, anybody else have anything else to share? So if not, we can move to question 10. The board actions reflect an understanding of the distinction between the board's role versus the superintendent's role. I think this is always where we have to just always be vigilant. In my opinion, we always have to remember that we represent each other and we collaborate with one another, and to know that our one and only employee happens to be our superintendent. Try not to boss you around too much. But if there's anything that you want to share in terms of thoughts that you might have towards this. Anybody have anything to share? It's okay. I think it's always mindful to be thinking of that. And the next one is question 16. The board approves district policies and expectations for student programs. Just reflecting on this, I think this is always one of those things where I think we need to be very proactive, especially about expectations, because we're representing such a large body of students. Does anybody else have anything to share?
I had just put on that I think that some of the policies probably need to be reviewed with the changes. It seems like a lot has changed in the world and everything, and maybe we need to just review like what has changed and maybe things that we don't always look at or don't always see, and if there's things that we need to update.
That's always a good idea. Always looking forward to the future. Anybody else have anything to share? No? Next question. The board reviews and approves student services programs presented by the superintendent and his staff that best supports all students. To me, I think this is one of those opportunities as, we go through time and, we have different needs. I think it's always good to kind of review to make sure that we are providing the best supports for our students, and certainly through Julie Hahn, who does so much, and many others that work so hard for our students. And so if anybody else has anything to share on this one.
Yeah, I think I made a comment on this one of that I think we do this, and I feel like it's our job as a board to really support staff on taking risks and being really bold and visioning. It's like if a plan hasn't been working, let's say, and there's some creative solutions or there's some, out of the box thinking, like really supporting staff around that. And kudos to you, Julie, for all the bold visioning that you do and moving us forward and trying different things out. So I would just say that to us as the board, just to be really encouraging in that, being supportive. Asking those questions to get that good feedback and all the different perspectives that we bring to the table, while also like putting the gas in that engine,
I think it's also our connections that we have in our community, and that helps tremendously. No, thank you. Anybody else have anything to share?
Yeah, I had just said that we do this approval process, but keeping in mind that a lot of our student services presentations, they are in our consent agenda section, so we actually don't have that formalized discussion regarding those student service activities that are going on for a lot of different things. So it is on the part of the board member to be very diligent about taking a deep dive in those consent agenda sections, especially as it relates to student services, and then having follow-up conversations. But then also being willing to like pull some of that out sometimes out of consent agenda is challenging because I know we have a lot on the docket, but sometimes we need to have that formalized presentation to really take a deeper dive into the data, what are some of the trends that are being seen in those presentations.
Yeah, and that almost follows into the very last question, which is the board ensures the district student services programs act in compliance to support our students, which I think is also very much tandem with that as well. So it's important to make sure that things are getting implemented, but on the follow side, make sure things are actually having the success that they need to and what we need to revise. So does anybody else have anything for that one? Everybody good?
I will reiterate, I agree with what Lisa said, and to that, I think when we review those, we have found that there have been asks for certain things or needs for certain things that if we don't pull it out, we don't discuss it, we don't always have those conversations to really bring those forward, so it is really important.
Okay, because that was our last question on there. So we have completed our evaluation. And now 5:10, board member comments. Does anybody have anything that they wish to discuss, or some wonderful celebrations that we have coming up? Aside from Michelle, ready to retire, go for it.
I'm excited to see the work that has been done between Ritenour Special School District to open a self-contained classroom over at the Kratz building, where we had put students back to school with their siblings, and I know that sometimes it's not always the best fit and they still move around, but being able to meet the needs of that community and in that particular building and all the work that I have seen go into that, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
For me, it's a New Year's resolution to be a little bit more active in the community, to be more active in Pride and Promise, to see what else we can do to give back to our community, and just having a more open mind, because there's so many exciting, wonderful things happening in our community. Anybody else have anything to share?
I saw that the trivia was postponed, right? So.
Be postponed to a date in February. As soon as I have that date, when I learn about it, I'll pass it up also.
Okay, because I'm ready. I got my thinking cap on.
Okay.
Gotta get our group together.
Since Ms. Tioli's here, when is the
March 4th?
March 4th is the Operation Graduation Trivia Night.
For the high school.
Where's that at?
That is at the VFW Hall, over on Lions Hall on Lackland.
Yep.
And Jen, are they selling Girl Scout cookies yet?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I haven't heard, and I have to make sure I get my order in. So it is Girl Scout cookie time.
Yes.
All right. Anything else?
Find
to
your
share?
local Ritenour Girl Scout.
Yes. Within the community, absolutely. If we don't have anything else to share, we can move to 6.0 consent agenda.
I'd like to motion to approve consent agenda items 6.01 through 6.05 as recommended.
Second.
All right, Mrs. Lunds?
Yes.
Mr. Garden?
Yes.
Ms. Glover-Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Eden?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez-Pinto?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Moving to 7.0 closed session and 7.01.
Motion to reconvene in closed session for State Statute 610-021 for the purpose of discussion of personnel agenda items.
Second.
Mrs. Enriquez-Pinto?
Yes.
Mr. Eden?
Yes.
Mrs. Glover-Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Garden?
Yes.
Mrs. Lonis?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. And I also say if we could have about a 10-minute break, so we may use the restroom and stretch our legs for a second, and then come right back.